Good evening to everyone who might be watching this later. And I'm going to start sharing again. All right. So we are on the Hebrew letters Kuf and Resh. And let me just get this. Okay. Find the right button there. All right. Everybody can see it just fine. All right. I can actually see you guys. So I don't know why. I think it's just that yeah, that's probably what we'll have to remember, Ryan, for you next week. Make sure everybody's up and then click on it, find it and click on it and have the people come like in front of your PowerPoint and then you can see them, because I think what happens is it gets behind the PowerPoint, and then once you enlarge the PowerPoint you can't see people. So anyway, that's just my observation here. All right. So there's a little bit here. We're going to start with a Kuf. And if you have your books, I'm going to also read in here a little bit because I found some cool things that I thought were worth mentioning. So you can see the Hebrew letter here. I don't know if you guys ever want to know, you can see me, right? So these cards help too. And what they do, there you can buy these packs of letters, and then behind it has the letter and the name, and then it also has the different way it looks and the sound. So these are also helpful if you are ever interested in knowing the alphabet a little better. Learning the alphabet, of course, any language is the first place you start. So it's a good thing to get. And then there's actually another set that has all the vowel sounds. So you can learn both the vowel and the consonant sounds. And honestly, I don't see those right now. But they all do the same thing where they put stuff on the back to help you learn how to pronounce those words. Another good source, I think I may have told you about this before, but I'll just remind anybody who's interested, is this is the Hebrew word pictures, and hopefully that's showing up clear enough for you. But this is also another good book, and it has tons of information in it to help you learn the alphabet and the meanings of the letters as well. And you can actually see the early um ancient, like even earlier than the letters we have. So, all right. So we say this Kuf, and I'll show you like right down here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you see we read backwards, remember? So it's a Kuf, it's a Vav, and it's a Pei. And just like I was showing you, that Pei is called the Pei Sophie on this. That's what it is. And this, even though it's a Pei, it has an F sound. Um, the the P sound will have like a dot. And actually, it has both those cards in this package, so you can see the difference between them, but this is without the dot. So the Vav is the center. That's where we get the oo sound. Okay, so this shows you that it kind of has a sound as queen, and it kind of gives you the information of the pictograph. If you see the pictograph over here, it looks like a horizon. Other people, if you stand it up, which it was rotated and stood up straight, they describe it as a needle with a thread going through it. So this is just some of the different things I found about this, but it shows a different writings, different way, the book, the block, the cursive, and all of that stuff. So remember, as you probably know this by now since we're at the end of the letters, but every letter has a name. So it has a spelling to the name. And so so the 100 is for the actual letter, but the name, because it's made up of 3 letters, also has a number, the gematria, with it as well. Okay, so moving on here, you see that it's the 19th letter of the alphabet, and the spiritual number 19 means faith. The kuf originally meant the back of the head or the eye of the needle. It also means surround, circuit, and resembles the word for monkey. So often they use this. It was an interesting thing. I didn't put it all on here, but some of the stuff I found was both these letters, this letter and the resh that we're going to do next, has like opposites to it. So so there's that monkey side of it, is that animalistic side, and it's kind of the opposite of the way we're supposed to live in the spirit. And so they were comparing and contrasting, basically, living in the spirit as opposed to living like kind of like an animal, just being all flesh, being just our own instincts, our own desires, just fulfilling those things like an animal does. So I thought that was an interesting point, but I didn't write all that down. It represents all the cycles of nature, changing seasons, monthly and yearly cycles. Because again, going back to that pictograph that has that sun and horizon look to it when it's on its side, that is what you see in my next thing. The pictograph is a circle with a line through it resembling the horizon. We've got Amanda here.
No, Chloe.
Okay, hey Amanda, hey Tom. So you see from Psalm 19:6, the verse goes, it's rising, meaning the sun. The verse before talks about the sun. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit, and this is the word kuf, the word I showed you in the last slide, the circuit to the end of them, and there's nothing hidden from its heat. So that's the cool thing I find about the Hebrew letters and the alphabet, is that you'll find actually the word here, the name of the letter in scripture. So we find it right there in this verse, among others. And I'll read a few others that I didn't want to just put them all down. Because it also means surround. So in Job 19:6, it says, and it has surrounded me with his net. So God has surrounded me with his net. In 2 Kings 6:14, it's talking about surrounding the city. And then of course it's in Psalm 119, but all the letters are in Psalm 119. So those were the main ones they listed in this book. The numerical value of the letter Kuf is 100. This number represents completeness and perfection, and therefore someone who has so this was interesting. So now we're talking about someone who has this letter in their name, and it kind of gives you an idea of who they are. So again, this is going to be like the equivalent of a Q, which there aren't that many people, I guess, that have Q names. I don't know. So it says, therefore, someone who has this letter in their name strives for perfection. But it can also be a K sound. Can you guys hear us? Tom, Amanda? I can't see them, so I don't know if they're. So therefore, someone who has this letter in their name strives for perfection. Someone who has this letter kuf in their name is a person who has the ability of control over their life. They are a person who knows how to control their desires and has strong self-discipline. So this is a good quality. It's not that they're controlling others necessarily, but they know how to control their own desires, that they have self-discipline. They are someone with high standards and they expect those around them to live up to those standards. So that's the downside of that kind of personality. This is a difficult trait that can sometimes cause unwanted friction. So they might be a perfectionist, which is obviously not a great quality, but they will be self-disciplined. So the letter is also the first letter. So this is where we're getting into the numbers of. Okay, sorry. For some reason. Okay, let me make sure they're in again. They must be having trouble getting in. No, it just keeps kicking them out or something. Ryan, can you find out what is going on with them? I keep letting them in. That's the third time I've let them in, and it kicked them out right away. So, okay, thank you. All right, getting back to mine. Okay. Now I lost my people. Let me just stop sharing a second and get it back. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I just wanted there we go. Okay. Get everybody back so I can see you guys and I can see my thing. All right. So again, the first letter of the word kadosh is means holiness, and it therefore represents holiness. The numerical value of the letter's name. Okay, so not the letter, but the name of the letter. Here it is spelled out on this PowerPoint, is 190, and it's the same as the value of the word makom, which makom refers to the Almighty. Okay, so okay. Sorry,
honey, you need to take Ruger out.
I will. I'm trying to get
okay.
this book and then take them out and put your trash out.
Okay. So let me just go through here and read page. I'm going to read from this book a little bit. Page 243, and that's where I'll be. So remember, as I've told you here on this page, this letter originally meant the back of the head or the eye of the needle. So going with the whole back of the head thing, she had some cool things written in here. And if you don't know, I'm a biologist. I've taught anatomy. So any of this kind of stuff really is interesting to me. So right there in the middle of the page, it starts with, you and I personally choose to engage the essence of Messiah Yeshua, the Word of God, contained within the Hebrew letter Kuf. The Alef Tav, redemption for Kuf, focuses on the back of the Messiah's head, which corresponds to the Holy of Holies in God's temple. The occipital bone, so this is the bone right here at the back of your skull, and it's very interesting bone because it covers a part of the brain that controls our breathing, and all of that. It controls, it's covering part of the brain stem is back there, and some of the smaller parts of the brain. And so it says that this area is called the it's the occipital or occiput or posterior noggin, as she says. So the occipital bone is the only bone in your head that connects with your cervical spine or your first cervical. It actually, as your spine, it sits on your spine, and it's very interesting because the two first, and I'm giving you a little anatomy lesson if you don't know this, but the first two cervical bones in your neck actually allow your head to nod and to turn. So one swivels and one rocks back and forth. And that allows our heads to move this way and this way and this way. So that's what's going on. That bone is sitting on top of those cervical bones in your neck. And it says, so the occipital bone is the only part of a person's skeletal structure that connects their head to their body. And so she goes on, we understand Kuf represents the head of the Messiah's vital connection to his body. The occipital bone surrounds a large opening known as the foramen magnum, and that is the largest hole in your body that basically connects your brain to your spinal cord. This allows key nerves and vascular structures passage between the brain and the spine. Namely, it's what the spinal cord passes through to enter the skull. The brainstem also passes through this opening. So it also allows the blood supply to go back and forth, obviously, and also the CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid. So she goes on to describe that it's trapezoidal in shape and curves onto itself like a dish. So if you felt your head is obviously curved back there, and so this major part back here would sit kind of like this. It would sit like this if you held it. And it says that this overlies the occipital lobes of the cerebrum, but it also, the cerebellum is back there as well. So the cerebrum is the largest part of your brain, and the cerebellum is kind of like a wrinkly part that looks totally different from the rest of your brain, but it sits back there too. But it's also where our vision is. So our vision starts back here in this part of our brain, and then your optic nerves run from the front of your head inside to behind your eyes, obviously. So your eyes connected to these occipital nerves, which then cross in the middle of your brain. They cross and then they connect with the occipital lobe of your cerebrum. So that's just a little bit of a anatomy lesson. But I thought it was, and well, let's just finish this. It says the occipital lobes of the cerebrum sit at the back of the head and are responsible for vision processing, like perceiving distance, depth, color, object, and face recognition, and memory formation. And on the next page, she says, just like the occipital lobe is in the back of the head and is the smallest lobe of the brain, it is the Holy of Holies, which is the back of God's temple, its smallest room. So I thought that was kind of cool. Hope you like, hope that kind of, I think whenever we can connect the parts of scripture with the human body, because of course God doesn't do anything by mistake or haphazardly. So there were things he put into place, and connecting, just like like how Paul connects the parts of the body to different things and to different gifts and importance of people, importance of different gifts. We can also take, I think, that kind of stuff that I just read and also help it kind of make sense of what he does in the spiritual as well. So any questions on that? That's the I think that was all I have until I go back to Resh. Or go forward to Resh. So
I have one question.
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh, when you said that anyone who has the Kuf in their name, you're talking about their Hebrew name, right?
It would be their name, and that letter would be used to spell their name in Hebrew. Yes.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I would say, you mentioned how the Kuf is um, a letter that could mean or represent like cycles or circuits. And so you have a word that's ketzir, and that's the word for harvest.
Yeah.
And so that starts with a kuf. And then, of course, you have the word tekufa, where you hear the word kuf
Yeah.
in tekufa, and that's the word for season.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool. And I did have some more I forgot about, but we read a lot, and thanks for bringing that up, because the word congregation, the word to call out or to cry out is also starts with this letter. Um, and it says the crying out is what follows the seeing. So when you think of, again, this part of your brain, that back part, the kuf, and that has to do with the vision center of our own brains, then to cry out is what follows the seeing, is what he and what they state here. It's also in Genesis 1:5 where it says, and God called the night the light day, and the darkness he called night. And so that kind of gives us a different way of looking at it. It wasn't he was just naming it. He was calling it out. He was saying, here it is. Boom, this is day, and boom, this is night. Also the grave or the tomb, and the word picture tells us that a grave is the final home of man at the end of this cycle, this human life cycle. Congregation is another, to assemble or a congregation. And again, if you know what the word congregation means, it's like the called out ones. So we go back to that calling out. And then to make strong or to encourage is another word. And that's ches, well, I won't even try to say it because I'll just say it wrong. But its word picture tells us that encouragement is what follows the vision. So that's pretty true if you think about that. How many times have you prayed for something and the Lord maybe gave you a picture or put something together so that it made sense in your mind, and then that was encouraging to you when you got that picture or when you got that understanding. The words, and here it goes in through the Psalms, Psalm 119. And almost every word either means I cry out with my whole heart. I cry out to you, save me, and I will keep your testimonies, and all that. So those are some of the words that are used. Did you have any more, Ryan? Because that was a good point. And I think Resh is like this too. When we do the Resh, you're going to see a lot of words that have similar meanings because they're all about the same thing. So, and you'll understand when I get there. Did you want to add anything else, Ryan?
No, I've got nothing.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. We'll start the next letter. Okay. Okay. All right. Here's Resh. Um, and I put it on here so you can see the kind of they divided up into a roof and a leg. Um, And the early Hebrew actually looks like a head. The middle Hebrew kind of looks like how some people write the number 4. And then it has the late Hebrew and the modern Hebrew. The thing well, I'll read this when we get here, but I was going to jump ahead, but let me just not do that. It says that, well, you can spell it R-E-S-H or R-E-Y-S-H. It's the 20th letter of the alphabet. Its numerical value is 200, and it means head. The pictograph symbolizes a person. The design of the Resh represents an individual who is bent over, like a poor person. The Resh is composed of 2 lines, one horizontal and one vertical, but it looks very similar to the Dalet. And that was like the 4th letter that we did. But the Dalet has a yod at its upper right-hand corner. So if you were to add a little yod right here at the top of this right-hand side where it slopes down, that's more like a Dalet. How you kind of tell them apart. But honestly, when I've studied Hebrew, that was always confusing. Even though I knew that, but some people don't add those, and some people, just like our own handwriting, when you start writing fast, you kind of take shortcuts and you might round some things off that aren't supposed to be rounded off, or you might not make it so defined. So you kind of have to get used to the way somebody writes and reading their writing to know how they make their the Resh and the Dalet. So here's a few things that the Resh symbolizes. It's a person or a prince. It means what is highest, what is most important, like the chief something or other. It's associated with the number 200, which means man's insufficiency and God's sufficiency. The first 2 letters of in the beginning, or the Bereshit, are the Bet and the Resh. And some of you may already know this, but that they spell son. So as in, like when we say bar mitzvah, it's the son of the covenant. So we're talking about bar, the word bar there. And of course, that's got some meanings and cool things. So I put one of the books away I had, but it's okay. So this I found very interesting, and I don't have a lot. I think this is I just have a couple slides here. In the Resh or the Resh, it's the word for poor, like I mentioned. So it's rash. R-A-S-H is the word for poor, and you see that it's a resh and a sheen. But when it's filled with the power of the Alef, meaning you add the Alef in the center, it becomes Rosh, like Rosh Hashanah, or it means the head of or the first, expressing the firstness, oneness, and eternity of the Creator, and the qualities of being a leader, not a follower. The Hebrew word for friend is Ra, and this word can also mean a companion, and it's related to many words that have to do with shepherding and the shepherd, the companion and friend of the flock. So that is like what Ryan was talking about just a minute ago. Some of these words, once you get the same letters, because there's so much meaning in the letters and the numerical system, that you get connections between those. So like earlier when I talked about the number of Kuf, and then the number of Almighty or holiness and Almighty. When two words have the same number, that means there's overlap, there's meaning, there's a reason. It's not by accident that they have the same numerical value. So here, the word Ra can also mean evil or bad. And that's actually when you first start learning Hebrew, that's like the first little word you start to learn. It means evil or bad. So it says the Hebrew word Ra which is Strong's 7,451, meaning evil, was originally spelled Resh Gayan, whereas the Hebrew word Ra in Strong's 7453, meaning friend, was originally spelled Resh Ayin. So what was interesting about this, and the reason I added it, was because Gahayan was actually a letter of the alphabet that is no longer used. And from what I have, some of my research was actually that where the Hebrew alphabet is made up of 22 letters, there was another Semitic language, and I don't know if it was Aramaic, but they mentioned some different things, different languages, but that had 28 letters. And this letter that has now been removed and no longer used, but at the time they used these two letters to spell evil, and then they used a slightly different spelling of the last letter, a known letter, ayin, that meant friend. So Gahayan is, or if that's how you say it, is no longer a letter they use. So this was a little longer, but this was cool. The ancient root of the resh means to shake or rattle, especially the head. The root meaning of the resh is developed into words that are both negative and positive reflections of its meaning. So that this is going again back with opposites. So the word for evil, ra, comes from the negative meaning of the shaking or ruin or being high up in the sense of pride. But the word for spirit, ruach, comes from the positive shaking or rattling of the wind, which I don't know, that I can't see my word. But literally, I guess maybe literally shakes or symbolically rattles or moves our spirits. My little thing won't move, sorry. Okay, fine. The bitter or grieving or poor, as in shaking the head in despair. The head chief ruler, as in shaking the head in authority. So again, these are different ways we shake our head, because think about it, you might shake it in disgust, you might shake it in despair, but you also, as a mom or dad, you're going to shake your head, meaning, no, I said no, and that's what I mean. So, so you can see the positive and the negative sides to that word. So, resh can mean first, or it can mean poor, or last. So keep those in mind when we're going through this verse here. Spiritually, it seems to be connected with the principle, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So the Hebrew word for foot, which is anatomically the opposite of the head, right at the other end, also begins with the letter resh. It's regal. We see these opposites of head and foot or heel in the following verse. Of course, as it's in Genesis. So the word resh is first used of the head of Satan being bruised by the seed of the woman. This verse is the very first promise in Scripture concerning Yeshua, Christ, and his work of salvation. The word heel can also be translated last. So Christ shall bruise the head, or the resh, or the first of Satan, and he shall become last. Satan shall bruise the heel, or the last, the bottom part of his body, of Christ, and he, meaning Yeshua, shall become first. So again, it's just putting in, instead of first and last or head and heel. So they're replacing head and heel with first and last, if that makes sense. So hopefully that's not terribly confusing, but I thought it was an interesting point because they're opposites again. So you're just thinking about it in the opposite sense that one's heel will crush the head of another, and the one who crushes the heel with the head with their heel will become first, and the one who has his head crushed by the heel will become last. So, yeah. So I know that didn't take me long. Um, so again, if I go back to some of these verses here, and this is just what I went over as a head in Genesis 3:15, he shall bruise your head. And again, this is the letter Resh. And then as it's used as the highest in Genesis 8:5, meaning the tops of the mountains were seen. So that's the story of Noah when he started seeing the tops of the mountain, and that letter was used. Or Rosh, okay? And then Rosh is used again as the beginning of months or the head of the month in Exodus 12:2. And it's used as the leader in Deuteronomy 33:5, meaning when the leaders of the people met. So those are some of the ways that that word Rosh is used and what it means. So see if I left anything out. A few more words. I already gave you leader. It can be master or rabbi. A leader or a master is Rav, R-A-V. And the word picture calls him the head of the house. The verb means great or plenty. It also means to betray or deceived. It's also used in the word to betray or deceive, sorry. And that's Rima. The word picture tells us betrayal is what comes from the person of chaos. Being idle or a sloth. The word for sloth or idle is Rafi, R-A-F-E. And the word picture tells us that the sloth is what comes from the man of the mouth. So I guess if we run our mouths too much, we don't get any work done. And a shout or a song of joy is Rena, R-E-E-N-A. And the word picture tells us a song of joy is what comes from a person of life. So those were some of the words that start with the resh and their meaning. So any questions, any comments, anything else? Ryan, do you want to share something? Add something?
No, I don't have any additions at all.
Okay. Yeah, I know I went quickly, but I wasn't trying to, but do you
Well,
have any questions?
It's funny. When I sometimes pour concrete for people, because that's what I do. If everybody doesn't know, I'm a construction guy. When I pour concrete, people will sometimes say, well, you sure did it fast. How did you get it done so fast? And almost like based on the price, I'm paying a lot of money, but you did it in an afternoon or whatever, in a day. And it's like, well, listen, I mean, I could make it last 3 days, you know,
Yeah.
and you're still going to get the same job, but I figured you would like it faster. So, that's, qualitatively, it's not going to change, Stephanie. You can make it last as long as you want, but it's still going to be good information.
Right. Yep. And Marion was talking about this book. If I know I showed it before, The Father's Love Language. So she was talking about this book earlier that she had just gotten it. So it's probably it's not a long book, and I would say that it's probably very easy to understand and comprehend. And she goes into a lot of different things She talks, the very first thing she talks about is Bereshit. So Bereshit, so that's in the beginning. So she kind of goes through that a little bit, like I did in the beginning. And then she goes through like the feast, and she also goes through the constellations. So it's I think it's worth having.
Yes. Very good.
So next week will be our last week. We have Ryan, I think, is going to do the last two letters. And you know, and we'll keep you updated if we have other classes and you might want to join. We try to do um this was actually kind of different. We've done a class on Revelation and Genesis, and we didn't open those up to everyone because I wasn't quite sure at that point. We were just kind of getting started. Um, so, you know, if you guys are interested in a study that we put together, we will be happy to make sure that you have the link and stuff like that to come if you're available. So,
When we go on your website,
mhm.
how do we find the recordings of this? Because I was
So
looking.
yeah, so if you go to the drop menu at the top, you'll see like sermons and teachings, and then you'll see Bible studies. And when you rub the cursor over that, the drop arrow kind of comes down and you'll see Genesis, Revelation, and then Olive Top.
Okay, great. Because I was looking for it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, yeah. You might be able to just bring it up for you real fast and see if I can share that.
While we're waiting,
Yes.
Tom and I are going to start releasing merchandise. Our very first shirt is going to be "Don't be a rash, be a roche."
Mm.
Great.
I think it would be don't be rash, be road.
I
Yeah.
like "Don't be a rash."
That's great. Will you have the letter on it?
You'd have to.
Yeah, that would be fun. Okay, let me see. I will try to share this page. I had to bring it up. Okay, can you everyone see that? So see when I touch that, Marion. So
Yes.
so that brings down one, and then when I go over to Bible study, then it brings this down. So you just then click on this, and then
Okay,
it's going to take you, and they're all in order. So as you just scroll down, you see it.
wonderful.
Okay, and I've
Thank
got them
you.
all dated. And I think in most of them, I included what letters and who was teaching it. So,
Wonderful. Thank you.
okay. We've got a lot of stuff on there as well. So you can take a look around. Oops, I thought my.
And
So-
Angie's book, very evangelical, is wonderful.
Yeah, good.
So let me ask, seeing that next week is our last week, if you, if you all would like to take, the next week and, you know, next, and then when we come back for next week's class, if you guys want to make suggestions of things you would like, topics you'd like to hear us teach about, we can actually just sort of, you know, maybe it's something that we are thinking about teaching as well. So, if you'd like to make suggestions, think about it this week and mention it to us next week. And, maybe in the late spring or summer, maybe we can do another one of these. I mean, it kind of depends on a lot of things, but, if we're able to, like I said, give us some ideas. Maybe maybe you guys will suggest something and it'll be like awesome and Stephanie will really want to get into it. And of course I'll be like, but I don't know anything about that. And she'll just tell me to stop being lazy and, you know,
Right. Excuse me. Okay. If there are any questions, I'll stop the recording. And we'll be done with that.